Welcome back to Deck Tech for Decks. I'm your host Caleb, and we are continuing the series where we talk about value engines. Today we're going to talk about Jeskai, and this isn't going to be your video where I talk about putting Smothering Tithe and Rhystic Study in the same deck because they're both amazing. No, we're talking about unique synergies where if you put them together, you create a pretty strong value engine, and that's going to eventually lead you to winning the game. So let's go ahead and click on that Whatnot link and claim your free $15. Additionally, you guys can get 10% off all of your Tolarian Library proxies whenever you use code DT4D. My friends over at Baron of the Dice are having a 15% off site-wide sale until the end of October. So now's the time to go pick up those awesome playmats and deck boxes that match. These are high quality and overall just unique. I'm really just in love with the look and feel of these deck boxes. When it comes to these guys, yes, they sponsor me, but I am a customer first. So I had to let you guys know, go get everything while it's 15% off until the end of the month. Alright, let's get right into it. The first thing you can do whenever you're playing Jeskai is you can put in a Curiosity Core. Now what Curiosity is it's an enchantment that enchants a creature, and then you're going to draw a card whenever that enchanted creature deals damage. Notably, it's any source of damage. It doesn't care if it's combat or non-combat damage, and there is 3 of these effects. You have Curiosity, you have Ophidium Eye, and you have Tandem Lookout, and they all effectively do the exact same thing. Then you have to look at the core of your deck. What is my deck trying to do? Am I trying to cast a ton of spells? Am I casting a ton of non-creature spells? Am I casting a lot of creatures or generating a ton of creature tokens? And based on what your deck is trying to do, and if it's trying to do that thing a lot, like generate a ton of value through casting a lot of non-creature spells, it's very easy to choose the next card you include to go ahead and be the catalyst for these Curiosity effects, like your Kessing Flame Breather effects. This is a 2 CMC creature that says whenever you cast a non-creature spell, Kessing Flame Breather is going to deal 1 damage to each opponent. And that's going to allow you to draw 3 cards every time you cast a non-creature spell, which is going to be amazing in your artifact and spellslinger archetypes. Now for anything else, you can look at Agate Instigator. This one triggers whenever a creature enters the battlefield and does essentially the same thing. It's going to deal 1 damage to each of your opponents, allowing you to draw 3 cards. And I will stress there is a plethora of these effects. You can easily find 3 different copies of Kessing Flame Breather that just have different names, and so the redundancy is there. Include 3 of these effects and then include your 3 Curiosity effects, and you've got an amazing engine that can draw you a ton of cards. The next one involves Jeskai Ascendancy, a pretty powerful card in most Jeskai decks, and then when you add another card, it becomes insane. This is 1 blue, 1 red, and 1 white. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, creatures you control get +1/+1 until end of turn. Untap those creatures. And then it says whenever you cast a non-creature spell, you may draw a card. If you do, discard a card. You're going to pair this with the battle Invasion of Segovia. It enters the battlefield, you're going to get 2 1/1 Krakens, and then whenever you flip it over, it says non-creature spells you cast have Convoke, meaning all of your creatures are able to tap to help cast all of your non-creature spells, and then whenever you cast a non-creature spell, Jeskai Ascendancy is just going to untap your board. So now you're able to just storm off with all of these non-creature spells. And remember, your commander is going to be every color, so we can pay for the colored pips there, and we do have 2 blue Krakens now, so those can help pay the cost as well. And whenever we're talking about these low to the ground storm decks that cast a lot of non-creature spells, whether it be artifacts or instant and sorceries, we're casting a ton of cantrips. So put these in your cantrippy decks and they will just allow you to storm off, and not to mention you are still getting the card selection from Jeskai's Ascendancy that says whenever you cast a non-creature spell, you may draw a card. If you do, discard a card. The next one is one of my absolute favorites, and this can go in any Izzet deck that is trying to cast a ton of spells, specifically instant and sorceries, and it's going to involve Stormsplitter, a 4 CMC creature, 3 generic, 1 red. He has haste, and whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, create a token that's a copy of Stormsplitter. Exile those tokens at the beginning of your next end step. So it's kind of like a Scoot Swarm for casting spells. Then you can pair this with Sorcerer's Class. When Sorcerer's Class enters the battlefield, you get to draw 2 cards, then discard 2 cards. You can level it to level 2 for 2 mana, again 1 red, 1 blue, and it says creatures you control have the ability to tap and add mana to your mana pool, either red or blue, and cast instant and sorceries. And then it has the ability for 5, which is 3 generic, 1 blue, 1 red. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, that spell deals damage to each opponent equal to the number of instant and sorcery spells you've cast this turn. So it's kind of a win con that also generates you a ton of mana. But what I'm getting at is once you pair this with Stormsplitter, you can cast your instant and sorcery spells, and that's going to generate you even more Stormsplitters. And since Stormsplitter has haste, he can instantly tap for more mana. That way you can instantly cast more instant and sorcery spells. So you've essentially generated an engine here that is able to give you near infinite mana while you're storming off, which is absolutely insane whenever you get it off. And even if you don't get it off, you are going to be left with a bunch of hasty otters. Now, they will be tapped if you've used them to cast spells, but if you haven't, you've got a bunch of untapped hasty otters. Now's a good time to point out, whenever we're talking about these spell slinger strategies or any strategy that generates tokens whenever you're casting non-creature spells or, again, instant and sorceries, you can easily slot in effects like Phyrexian Altar. These are sack outlets that allow you to sacrifice creatures to add mana to your mana pool. So now whenever we're talking about our young pyromancer effects, we're casting an instant and sorcery, we're gaining a token, and then we're sacrificing that token to generate mana, and that's going to allow you to continue storming off. And the reason we're able to storm off in this way is because 9 times out of 10, the instant and sorceries we're casting here give us card advantage. So the card advantage is the spell we're casting. Then we have the young pyromancer, which is generating the tokens, and then we're sacrificing the tokens to Phyrexian Altar to generate mana, creating a massive storm engine that can lead to us winning the game. I also want to talk about Skullclamp in this scenario as well. Like I said, Jeskai has a ton of effects that generate 1/1s whenever you do X. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, whenever you cast an instant sorcery, just the plethora of 1/1s you get in these colors is insane. And that's why I think Skullclamp is just a solid card to shove in your Jeskai decks. This is an equipment that says equipped creature gets +1, -1, and then whenever equipped creature dies, you draw 2 cards. So it's essentially 1 mana, draw 2 cards whenever you're clamping it onto a 1/1. So it can kind of help enable those storm strategies that get stuck whenever they run out of cantrips, because you have a bunch of tokens from Young Pyromancer left on the battlefield. Just something to think about. If this fits into your deck, go ahead and toss it in. It's going to do work. The next one is in the context of specifically artifact decks. We're just going to talk about it a little bit since this is kind of a more specific archetype, but I want to talk about Unwinding Clock. Unwinding Clock is an artifact that says untap all artifacts you control during each other player's untap step, meaning you're going to get to untap all of your artifacts 4 times a rotation. It's insane whenever you pair it with Jeskai Genesis Engine, an artifact that says pay 1, draw 2 cards, then you get to create a 1/1 colorless pilot creature token. This is going to allow you to dig 8 cards deep every single rotation. It's really insane. And then we can talk about the One Ring. We already know this is insane. You get to put a burden counter on it every time you tap it, and then you get to draw cards equal to the burden counters. So whenever you're doing this in the context of Unwinding Clock, you put 1 on it, draw 1 cards. Next turn, you're putting 2 on it, drawing 2 cards. Now you're at 3. The next turn, 3 cards. You've drawn 6 cards at this point, and then the last card, or the last one, you get to put 4, and then you've drawn 10. This card's just absolutely insane, but everybody knows that already. The new one that I don't think a lot of people are on yet is Insight Engine. This is essentially a budget One Ring. 2 generic, 1 blue, and it says pay 2 generic, and then you can put a charge counter on this artifact. Then you draw a card for each charge counter on it. So it does exactly what the One Ring does. You just have to pay an additional 2 mana. But let's be honest, whenever we're talking about Unwinding Clock effects, we're also untapping all of our mana rocks. So we're probably always going to have that extra 2 mana to draw the extra cards. And then once we're doing that, we're able to turn on an insane value engine. And on their own, even Jeskai Genesis Engine is going to allow you to see 2 cards. The One Ring's already insane, and then 2 cards to just ramp up Insight Engine to just draw more and more cards is still good, even in the context that you don't have Unwinding Clock. Now let's talk about them. You guys know I love them, so we're going to talk about how this gets upgraded whenever you add blue to Goblin Engineer loops. Goblin Engineer is a 2 CMC creature. Whenever you enters the battlefield, you get to search your library for an artifact and put it directly into your graveyard. And then by sacrificing an artifact, you can basically reanimate an artifact of 3 CMC or less and put it directly onto the battlefield. Now, you guys already know, if you've watched the previous videos, the first thing you do is grab Cursed Mirror, and then you're able to clone the Goblin Engineer whenever you reanimate the Cursed Mirror. And then from there, once we add blue, we have a choice. We can either grab Brass's Tunnel Grinder, allows you to discard any number of cards and then draw that many cards +1 whenever it enters the battlefield, or you could grab the Ever-Flowing Well. This is a 3 CMC legendary artifact that says whenever it enters the battlefield, you get to draw 2 cards and mill 2 cards, so essentially allowing you to see 4 cards in the context that your graveyard is your hand. And then it even gets more insane because now we can add Simulacrum Synthesizer to the mix as well. This is a 3 CMC artifact that says whenever another artifact with mana value 3 or greater enters the battlefield under your control, you get to create a 0/0 colorless construct artifact creature token with this creature gets +1/+1 for each artifact you control. So now we can add a way to generate a board state while we're doing these Goblin Engineer loops. So now we're getting value stacked on top of value and a board state. From there, I want to talk about some singles that I think are absolutely insane. Memnon is crazy. This is a newer card for 5 CMC. You get a legendary creature jellyfish that has flying, and you may look at the top card of your library at any time. You may cast artifact spells from the top of your library, and artifacts you control have tap, add 1 blue, spend this mana only to cast spells from anywhere other than your hand. So now you turn all of your artifacts into mana rocks, and additionally, those mana rocks can help you cast more cards from the top of your library. There's a very funny EDH deck out with this guy. You basically just play all the 0 and 1 drop artifacts, get him on the battlefield as fast as possible, and cast your entire library. Super funny stuff, but honestly, in the context of heavy artifact decks, this guy just gives you a ton of value, and even just being able to cast cards from the top of your library is an engine in itself. Whenever we're casting a card from the top of our library, it is card advantage because you are essentially drawing that card and then casting it, allowing you to get card advantage by casting spells. And there's no limit to this, right? As long as you have mana, you can keep casting spells. So it's good in your artifact decks. Throw it in there. Kaikar is also kind of insane here. This does 2 of the things that we really like. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, you get to create a 1/1 white spirit creature token, and then you can sacrifice that spirit to add 1 red mana to your mana pool. So it's not only a source to generate those 1/1s that are really, really important whenever you build around them, it's also a really good source to generate mana by sacrificing those 1/1s. And last but not least, I want to talk about Surge to Victory because this card is just underrated and has won me game after game. It's a sorcery that says exile target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard. Creatures you control get +X/+0 until end of turn, where X is that card's mana value. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player this turn, copy the exiled card. You may cast that copy without paying its mana cost. What's crazy is the potential of this card is just infinite. If you exile something like an extra combat step, you're going to get an extra combat step every time your creature deals combat damage to a player. That's just not okay. That's just infinite extra combat steps. And then the low end is you just exile something that draws you 3 cards whenever a creature deals combat damage to a player, and that's still very, very good. Not to mention, let's say you have something like a Blasphemous Act in your graveyard, exile that, and now your creatures are just hitting like a truck. Yes, the board is going to get wiped, but are your opponents even going to be alive after that? Probably not. With that being said, guys, I'm going to end the video here. Be sure to leave in the comments down below any of these Jeskai value engines that you enjoy, and be sure to let me know if you guys are enjoying the series. I've been very, very pleasantly surprised to see that you guys are absolutely loving this, and I'm excited to make them for you. So with that being said, I hope you guys have a great day, and I'll see you guys in the next one.